The hospital room was unnervingly silent, except for the steady beeping of the monitors and the faint rustle of sheets. He lay blindfolded, every nerve on edge, unable to see the world he had once taken for granted. The surgery had been successful, or so the doctors said, but the fear gnawed at him. What if he never saw again? She hovered at his bedside, book in hand, her voice trembling despite her calm smile. "Are you ready to try reading?" He swallowed hard, panic tightening his chest. "I don't know if I can hear it. I don't know if I can trust myself to—" "You don't have to see," she interrupted gently. "Just listen. Let me guide you." But his heart rebelled against the darkness, against the helplessness of relying on someone he didn't even know. And yet, the sound of her voice, soft and steady, was a tether to a world he feared he might never touch again. It was in that fragile, uncertain moment that something unexpected happened. He felt a stir in his chest, a connection he couldn't explain. But along with it came doubt. Could he ever fall in love with someone he couldn't see? Could trust survive where sight failed? The answers lay hidden, waiting to be discovered in the silence between her words, and in the darkness that refused to lift. Before we begin, don't forget to share where you're watching from, comment and subscribe to the channel for more thrilling stories. Woke to darkness that wasn't night. It was the careful, padded dark of hospital rooms, curtains drawn, machines breathing softly, a blindfold tied gently around his eyes to protect them after surgery. His world had been reduced to sound and sensation, the antiseptic sting in the air, the distant squeak of shoes on linoleum, the dull ache behind his eyes. And then there was her voice. It came to him like a hand reaching through the dark. "Are you awake?" she asked quietly, as if loudness itself might hurt him. He swallowed. "I think so." "Good," she said, smiling. He could hear that too, somehow. "The doctor said you'd be bored. I volunteered to read." "Volunteer?" he echoed. "That sounds dangerous." She laughed, a soft, unguarded sound. "I promise not to butcher the classics." That was how it began. She read to him every afternoon while the light healed his eyes. Poems at first, short, gentle things that didn't ask too much of him. Her voice rose and fell like water over stones, steady and warm. When she read, the machines faded. The pain dulled. The darkness became bearable. He didn't know what she looked like. He only knew the way she paused before emotional lines, as if feeling them first. The way she pronounced his name when she checked on him between chapters. The way her voice softened when she thought he'd fallen asleep. "What are you reading now?" he asked one day. "A love story," she said. He smiled faintly. "Does it end well?" "That depends," she replied, "on how brave the characters are." He found himself waiting for her more than the medication, counting time by the sound of her footsteps. He learned her moods by the rhythm of her breathing, her secrets by the silences she left between sentences. And somewhere between chapter 7 and 8, he realized the terrifying truth. He was falling in love with a woman he had never seen. On the 5th day, she hesitated before reading. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Your bandages come off tomorrow," she said. "You'll see again." He nodded, though his chest tightened. "That's good." "Yes," she agreed too quickly. "Will you still read to me?" he asked. There was a pause. A long one. "I don't think you'll need me anymore," she said softly. The idea hurt more than his eyes ever had. "I will," he said. "I already do." The next morning, the doctor removed the blindfold. Light flooded in sharp and overwhelming. He blinked, tears spilling freely, the world slowly stitching itself back together. And then he saw her. She stood near the window, book pressed to her chest, as if ready to leave without being noticed. She wasn't what he had imagined, and somehow, she was everything. Nervous smile. Tired eyes. Hope trembling just beneath the surface. "You're real," he whispered, half laughing, half undone. She stepped closer. "I was always real." He reached for her hand, guided not by sight but by memory, by the voice that had loved him first in the dark. "I fell in love with you," he said simply, "before I ever saw you." Her eyes filled with tears. "I fell in love with you too," she admitted. "I just didn't know if you'd stay, once you could see." He squeezed her hand. I didn't need my eyes to know. Outside, the world was bright and loud and waiting. But he would always remember this truth. Sometimes, love doesn't begin with a look. Sometimes, it begins with a voice that reads to you in the dark. She laughed through her tears, a soft, breathless sound that felt familiar to him now, like a favorite line reread. I'm glad, she said, wiping her cheeks, because I don't think I could stop reading to you even if I tried. He shifted in the bed, still unsteady, and patted the empty chair beside him. Sit, please. I feel like if you disappear again, I'll wake up blindfolded all over. She sat, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her arm through the thin hospital gown. For a moment neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't awkward, it was reverent, like the pause before a final chapter. You know, he said, when I couldn't see, I imagined you 100 different ways. Oh no, she teased weakly. Was I taller? Mysterious? Graceful? You were kind, he replied. That was the only thing I was certain of. Her breath caught. I used to read faster when you were asleep, she confessed. I didn't want the story to end. It felt like if I stopped this, she gestured between them, might stop too. He turned toward her fully now, eyes still sensitive but unwavering. It doesn't have to end. But you're being discharged soon, she said. You'll go back to your life. What if, he said carefully, my life is about to start? She searched his face as if trying to read him the way she'd read the pages. You don't even know me, she whispered. I know your voice trembles when you lie, he said. I know you read the sad parts slower. I know you pretend not to care how stories end, but you always do. A smile broke through her uncertainty. You listened. I had nothing else, he said. So I listened with everything. Later that afternoon, she read to him one last time in the hospital room. The sun spilled across the sheets, catching dust in its glow. Her voice wavered near the end of the chapter. That's it, she said. The end. He took the book from her hands and set it aside. I don't believe that. She met his eyes. What do you believe? I believe, he said, standing slowly, that the best parts don't get written until after the lights come on. When he was discharged, she walked him outside. The air smelled like rain and new beginnings. For the first time, he heard her voice without walls, without machines, without fear surrounding it. Will I see you again? She asked. He smiled, the same smile he'd worn in the dark. I'd recognize you anywhere. How? Because, he said, reaching for her hand as cars passed and life moved loudly around them, even with my eyes open, your voice still feels like home. And as they walked away together, the world finally clear before him, he knew this love had been written in an unusual way. Not in ink, not in light, but in the quiet courage of someone who stayed and read when he could not see. They didn't rush love after that. It unfolded the way her stories always had, slowly, deliberately, with meaning tucked between the lines. They met for coffee first. He arrived early, nervous in a way surgery had never made him. When she walked in and said his name, the sound alone made him smile before he even looked up. She teased him about it, but her cheeks flushed pink, pleased that she still had that power. Do you miss the blindfold? She asked, stirring sugar into her cup. Sometimes, he admitted. Everything felt quieter then. She tilted her head. And now? Now I get to see who's speaking. She began reading to him again, but no longer from books borrowed from hospital carts. Now it was from her own shelf, curled up on opposite ends of a couch that slowly grew smaller with each visit. She read in the evenings, feet tucked beneath her, voice slipping naturally into the familiar rhythm he'd memorized. Sometimes he watched her instead of listening. Are you even paying attention? She asked once, catching him. I am, he said. Just differently. He learned her expressions the way he'd learned her pauses. The way her eyebrows knit together during difficult passages. The way she smiled before turning a page she loved. Seeing her felt like matching sound to meaning, like a language finally complete. One night the power went out during a storm. The apartment fell into darkness, thick and sudden. She froze. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I'll light a candle. Wait, he said gently. She stopped. For the first time since the hospital, they sat together in the dark. Rain tapped against the windows. Her breathing changed, cautious. I remember this, he said softly. This is how it was. She swallowed. Does it scare you? No, he replied. Because I know you're here. She sat beside him then, closer than ever, book resting uselessly in her lap. Read to me, he asked. But you can see now. I know, he said. I just want to hear you. So she read by memory, no pages, no light, reciting a passage she loved, voice trembling at first, then steady. And in the darkness, he realized something else. He hadn't fallen in love with her because he was blind. He had fallen in love because he had truly seen her. When the lights flickered back on, they didn't move right away. He reached for her face, slow and careful, as if asking permission without words. She leaned into his touch, eyes shining. You found me, she whispered. He smiled. You never left. And when he kissed her, it felt like the final line of a story he never wanted to end. Only the beginning of one they would write together. Page by page, voice by voice. In both the light and the dark. Weeks turned into months, and their love deepened in ways neither of them could have anticipated. He learned her habits, the way she hummed softly when she was nervous, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when concentrating on a passage. She learned him too, the way he traced invisible patterns with his fingers when he thought, the small smile he gave when he understood something without words. One crisp autumn evening, they returned to the hospital room where it all began. It smelled faintly of antiseptic and old flowers from the bouquet she had brought the day he woke. The blindfold sat on the bedside table, a relic of the past. He held her hand and said, Do you remember when I couldn't see anything? She smiled, eyes glistening. I do. And I remember reading to you as if my voice alone could be enough. He cupped her face in his hands, gentle and deliberate. It was more than enough. You were more than enough. And I realized something. Love doesn't always need sight to know truth. It needs courage, presence, and a willingness to stay. Tears welled in her eyes. And you stayed. I stayed, he said softly, because you were home to me even in the dark. That night, they returned to her apartment. She placed the old hospital book on the shelf, a silent monument to the moment that changed their lives. Then she pulled him close and whispered, Read to me. He laughed gently, pressing his forehead to hers. Why don't we write our own story instead? And so they did. They wrote it in shared mornings and quiet evenings, in laughter and gentle arguments, in whispered confessions and voice-over passages read aloud in the dark. They wrote it in the way true love is written, not in pages or ink, but in presence, trust, and the unshakable knowledge that sometimes the heart sees clearer than any pair of eyes ever could. The story that began in darkness became a lifetime of light, one voice and one heart entwined forever. Years later, they returned to that quiet truth. Love had begun in darkness, but it had grown in every light that life could offer. Their apartment overflowed with books, each one a testament to shared afternoons and late-night readings. Sometimes, when the world outside was too loud, he would close his eyes and she would read to him again, just for the memory, just for the feel of the first time their hearts truly connected. One winter evening, snow falling soft and silent against the city streets, he led her to the same hospital room where it all began. The blindfold had long been discarded, and the machines were gone, but the air still held the faint echo of their first moments together. He took both her hands in his voice steady but full of emotion. I've read every story, felt every plot twist, and yet the greatest story of my life is still the one we are writing together. She smiled, tears shining in the dim light. And I thought our story began with a book, she whispered. No, he said softly. Our story began with your voice. And it will never end. From his coat pocket he drew a small, velvet box. When he opened it, the candlelight reflected in the ring, catching her breath in the way only breathtaking moments can. Will you keep reading with me, he asked, for all the chapters we've yet to live? Her hand flew to her mouth. Yes, she said, voice trembling, yes, 1,000 times yes. They embraced, the world around them fading to insignificance, leaving only the quiet, enduring truth. Love had found them in the dark, had survived the light, and now would guide them through every page to come. And so, with voices intertwined and hearts inseparable, they stepped forward together, into the story they would never stop writing, the story that began in darkness and bloomed into forever.